Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Victorious Ones podcast, a place where gaming meets comics, meets sports, meets movies, as well as inspiration, along with music as well. Of course, I'm your host, King Von Jr. You can follow me on social media on Twitter at 301 King Von Jr. You can follow the show's Twitter page at Victory Pod 1. I'm also on Instagram at Mr. King Von Jr. You can follow the show's Instagram page at Victorious Ones Podcast. I'm also the social media producer for Perfect Plex Talk Radio, of course, on Mondays at 6 p.m. Hosted by a friend of the program, Mike Knox. And so, it's quite a weekend, um, and of course, I want to say that I had an incredible um, Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and so that was that Saturday was day of service, day of outreach, community service, um, of course, doing that with my church. So as far as that, not only that, but that was definitely, it was also great weekend of NFL, of course, NFL football, and so that, especially when it comes to playoff, obviously this was the divisional round of the playoffs that just passed, and um, so we saw that the Denver Broncos defeated the Buffalo Bills to advance to the AFC Championship. And so, of course, that game ended in overtime. And of course, I saw the Green Turtle, and I stayed to the very end. And the Broncos defeat the Bills 33-30. Unfortunately, Bo Nix is out for the AFC Championship game. And so as far as that, so of course, but nonetheless, Denver advances. And on Saturday, Seattle Seahawks, demolished the San Francisco 49ers, sent them to Suplex City, 41-6. And this looks like this could be the reemergence of the Legion of Boom defense. Because they look like world beaters in that game. San Fran was outmatched on every turn. They were hemmed up, caught up in everything. And so it was also Sam Darnold's first playoff win, and they just outclassed the 49ers. And so, and especially because San Francisco didn't have George Kittle. So that came back to bite them royally, and cost them in a big way. And so on Sunday, this has been an excellent, football weekend. Like the storylines are hitting, like the NFL's in their element right now when this season when it comes to football, especially when it comes to playoffs. They've really been playing absolutely. That's usually what it is when it comes to the playoffs anyway. But this was just next level of intensity. And so, so as a matter of fact, I'm going to go into, of course, the New England Patriots. We're going to defeat the Houston Texans. 34-31. Let's see. Patriots. And the thing is, initially, I had, a matter of fact, 2016. What am I talking about? 2016, the Patriots crushed the Texans at home in New England, and the thing about it was initially actually had the Patriots, but it's just like so many people were on this Houston Texan bandwagon because of their defense and with the way that they made short work of Pittsburgh. But this ain't the Steelers they were facing. The Patriots have made a resurgence, if you will, and they're looking to reclaim their dynasty pretty much, at this point. So, like I said, the Broncos defeat the Bills 33-30. The Seahawks dog walk the Niners 41-6. The Patriots defeat the Texans 28-16. And last but not least, you have the Rams defeat the Bears. Bear down for real, 20-17 at Soldier Field. With the elements, the weather elements against them, and and whatnot. But that did not faze them at all whatsoever. And so, and the thing about it is that Chicago made some critical mistakes, much like Buffalo did, that really came back to bite them in the worst way. And it was a pretty devastating loss. And so, but at the same time, Caleb Williams had some, had some pretty heroic moments, if you will. Especially with that game time touchdown to number 85 in the corner. I said, "Oh my gosh," but at the same time, Matthew Stafford, really, really clicked when it mattered the most, and like I said, of course, this is going to be, and of course, Puka Nacua. Oh, that's your franchise receiver right there. You know what I mean? Like this guy has been hitting all cylinders, and of course, you have Devontae Adams, and so Devontae Adams is in search of his first ring. Stafford's already been there, and plus the thing is that Stafford and Adams have both played with cold weather teams. Obviously Matthew Stafford played for the Lions. Devontae Adams used to play for the Packers, so they're used to cold environments. It's just that when it mattered most, their experience outclassed, Chicago, in different aspects, different areas. And so like I said, as far as that, and when you look at it, the thing about it is that anytime number 9 has the ball, you have to walk on eggshells, if not landmines, be on pins and needles, because anytime he has the ball, there's always a chance. And Stafford, has been having a phenomenal season, and he has established himself, cemented himself as an all-time great, but I feel like he's sometimes underrated just because of the receiver that he played with in Detroit. Calvin Megatron Johnson was a Hall of Famer himself. But Stafford, has time and time again proved he was more than just Megatron's quarterback. I mean, look at the Super Bowl that he won, right? And so he is, like I said, he's been etching his name more and more. He's definitely a top 20 to 25 QB all time in my estimation. You know what I mean? So and of course that experience definitely, definitely stepped up in the most opportune and perfect time. So like I said, as far as that, I would say that was the game of Sunday, and the game. Well, I'll say as far as Saturday, you had back-to-back epic games, especially when it came to when it came to the Broncos Bills game, as well as especially that Seahawks and Niners. Oh my gosh, they bring them up the building. But yeah, like as far as that, that's my NFL recap. Now, when it comes to who I have winning each championship game for the AFC, I have the Patriots. Just plain and simple, no question. As far as the NFC, on one end, I want to say the Rams, but that Seahawks defense is just ferocious. I almost want to plead the fifth on that one. It's just made the best team win at that point. But yeah, and it'll be funny though if the Rams end up winning and going all the way and end up winning the Super Bowl. And end up winning the Super Bowl, making them, I think, probably the only team that I can think of who won 2 Super Bowls in the same state. They already won their last Super Bowl at home at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. It would be funny if they were to win their next Super Bowl in Santa Clara, San Francisco, where the 49ers play. That's perfect storytelling right there. But yeah, it's definitely going to be very fascinating for sure. And the 49ers just released a documentary on AMC, and the timing of it is just downright hilarious right now. And so now, when it comes to NBA, just quick NBA recap. I know. Start. Of course, I know last night. Um, I think that I'll say that the premier game that I was watching was the Spurs and Rockets, and Houston Rockets will go on to win 111-106, and of course Wemby at 27. Of course, 27 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. But it's just that the Spurs, gave up so much of a lead. And on the Rockets end, of course, Kevin Durant had 18, 7, and 4. But Houston's, of course, Alperen Sengun was the lead scorer with 20 points and 13 rebounds. And actually, no, it's Reece Shepherd at 21 points. That was the lead scorer right there. But yeah, like I said, Houston's a very fairly balanced team at 26-15. San Antonio 30-14. And speaking of Houston, of course, today is Hakeem Olajuwon's birthday, so obviously, for those that are watching, I'm wearing his jersey. But like I said, of course, I digress. But yeah, but like I said, just a quick recap of that. And so now, I want to, of course, dive into some of the week of wrestling, especially when it came to Friday Night SmackDown. First. And of course, we see Drew McIntyre. Of course, like I said, you saw Drew McIntyre pretty much make his first, appearance as a WWE champion. Of course, last week we saw McIntyre win the WWE championship from Cody Rhodes in a 3-stage hell match. But Nick Aldis has already set up a tournament to find Drew's next challenger. And so some of the matches that are featured, of course, on SmackDown were Damian Priest versus Solo Sikoa, Sami Zayn versus Ilya Dragunov, Randy Orton versus The Miz, or especially with that RKO that Orton dropped, Miz like the week before. Matt Cardona versus Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes holds an open challenge for the U.S. title, and Drew McIntyre celebrates his WWE Championship win. So I'll see, those are the main highlights. We have Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss versus Julia and Kiana James, and the winners of this match, Charlotte and Alexa. And of course, pretty much we have Trick Williams versus Matt Cardona. Trick wins, of course, with the trick shot. Rightfully so. Damian Priest for Solo Sikoa. Damian defeats Solo, and Melo defeats Leon Slater. It was an excellent match. We see Chelsea Green versus Jordan Grace, the Juggernaut herself. Jordan Grace wins this match, and we also have, like I said, Sami Zayn defeats Ilya Dragunov. And like I said, it definitely SmackDown did a great job. Did a pretty nice job of juggling multiple storylines that are related to championships. And the main matches that stood out above the rest were Carmelo Hayes and Leon Slater, as well as Sami Zayn versus Ilya Dragunov. And I'm looking forward to what this tournament's going to hold. For who's going to be the number one contender for Drew's championship. And on Monday, and I'm not the biggest fan of, to be honest with you, I'm really not the biggest fan, of some of these Monday Night Raws that have been taking, these international Raws that have been taking place, pretty much like at 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon and stuff. So as far as that's concerned, but of course I digress. And of course I would say some of the main highlights of Raw were that that apparently has been finalized official that the AJ Styles is going to face Gunther at the Royal Rumble, and they're saying if AJ loses, his career is going to be over. I feel as though that's kind of premature to have AJ have his retirement match at the Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? Like, I still believe he still has some more left in the year. And especially someone of his caliber is deserving of a farewell tour, if you will. And so, and a matter of fact, before I go any further, I want to say, in fact, another thing I want to recap as far as MLK Weekend. I'm also got to go to a Wizards game on Monday. So like while Raw was airing, while Raw was taking place initially, I was at a Wizards game for MLK Day itself. Uh, so as far as that, and then that night came back home and saw the national championship game. So congratulations to the Indiana Hoosiers for becoming national champions, defeating the Miami Hurricanes. You know, so as far as that 27-21. So I mean, if anything, Indiana well deserved. Um, so I just wanted, another quick, of course, non-wrestling related highlight I had to address. But yeah, like let's see, of course, back to Monday Night Raw. So AJ Styles challenged Gunther to a rematch at the Royal Rumble. Gunther said he didn't want to pull double duty at the event, but changed his tune after Styles pointed out he made Gunther tap out last Monday, so Gunther was livid about that. Gunther said the only way he would accept the match is if Styles puts his career on the line. So AJ later told Adam Pearce that he talked to his wife, who said kick his butt, make the match official. And so, not only that, we also have Jey Uso declared for the Royal Rumble, and he gave a shout out to Jimmy Uso and Naomi, or called Naomi by her first name, Trent. So there's a lot of speculation in terms of what that could be about. My thoughts and prayers, go out to them, as they are obviously expecting, proceed with caution and they be on board. So I'm praying for whatever it is that could be. Excuse me. But of course, we also had the Women's Intercontinental Championship match. Rebecca Lynch defeated Maxine Dupree by way of pinfall to retain the title. So Maxine seemingly had the match won. She could have regained the title after Becky collided with the exposed turnbuckle. But Natty turned on Maxine, putting Becky's foot on the ropes. Then Lynch hit the manhandle slam for the win. Afterwards, Natalya turned heel, Natty turned heel, and attacked Maxine, and even here with the sharpshooter. And so, attacker even locked in the sharpshooter. So yeah, this is Natty's official heel turn. Teacher versus student, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, whatever they're gonna make out of it. Not tripping off it. Then we have Penta, Rey Mysterio, and Dragon Lee defeat Bronson Reed, Austin Theory, and Logan Paul by way of pinfall. After Penta hit a Mexican destroyer on Austin Theory. During the match, Adam Pearce had to remove brass knuckles from Logan Paul, and as Pearce argued with Paul Heyman, Mysterio grabbed the knuckles and hit Theory to set up the finish. As we all know, the rest is history. As Heyman later threatened Pearce, saying that everyone was missing. He's no longer Raw general manager. He's about to take it, make it legal, if you will. And so then, the Judgment Day attacked Io and Rhea. Of course, Rio, if you will. Of course, Io Sky and Rhea Ripley talked about their upcoming match with Liv and Roxanne. But of course, before Morgan and Perez came to the ring, and of course, all four of them said that they'd be in the Royal Rumble before Raquel joined Judgment Day teammates and attacked Io and Rhea. And we also have El Grande Americano defeat Javon Evans by way of Dr. Stoppage after it appeared that Javon has suffered a shoulder injury during the match. And so it's been, apparently it says that Javon's, doing fine now. So nobody knows exactly what it was. It wasn't clear. As the match wasn't clear over. Of course, after commercial break. And so we see that it's official that AJ Styles versus Gunther is going to take place at the Royal Rumble January 31st in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which is going to take place at 2 p.m. here Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific time on West Coast time. And that's the price that you pay when it comes to having, these international PLEs, which take place in the heart of your day, in the middle of your Saturday. You know what I mean? Like it's at the very peak of of your enjoyment of of the best time of the weekend. And then by the time it's over, the thing is, Royal Rumble is going to be ending at the time that PLEs normally start here in the States. So, it's going to be quite an adjustment. And then WrestleMania is going to be there next year. And, imagine WrestleMania during brunch. Like, come on. But that's another story for another day. But the main thing I really want to talk about, you know what? Matter of fact, let me go into this NXT as well. And so, of course, it's been confirmed that Tommaso Ciampa, confirmed that he's going to make his departure from WWE after his contract comes to an end. So that's been finalized as that is crystal clear. That on NXT, the feud between the feud between Jada Parker and Blake Monroe continues to escalate. And of course we also saw Elio LaFleur versus Ethan Page for the North American Championship, Eli Knight versus Shawn Legacy, Josh Briggs versus Shiloh Hill, and Ren QCC versus Zaruka, Zari and Soruka versus Fatal Influence, the triple threat tag team match. And we see that the winner of the North American Championship, the winner is still North American champion, all entitlement or all ego Ethan Page. Of course, we have Shiloh Hill defeat Josh Briggs. We have Swipe Right versus Chase U, and Swipe Right defeat Chase U. Of course, Jada Parker is back. And so apparently this promo is clearly probably the best that she's delivered since coming to NXT. And so it's of course a feud with, feud with Blake Monroe, has potential to be even bigger. And we have Shawn Legacy versus Eli Knight. Shawn Legacy defeats Eli. Ren QCC versus Fatal Influence versus Zaruka, and the winners of this match, rightfully so, Zaruka, Zari, and Soruka. Great chemistry. I think that those are some of the bright spots of this NXT roster. Along with Jada Parker herself. So as far as that, like I said, I look forward to what else NXT has in the future. So I certainly believe in Shawn Michaels, as I've said before. And I believe that he'll find a way to improvise and navigate and make necessary transitions. So the main topic that is at hand right now that I want to talk about is this WWE Unreal documentary. And of course, this is season 2 of Unreal. And so I will say that, some of the main talking points, if you will, that come out of this are the handling of R-Truth, as well as Naomi, when it comes to their contract situations in terms of, the way that, the way that the company, I should say, has dealt, sort of dealt them a bad hand, and how, they tried to, twist the narrative about R-Truth's, departure, saying the contract ran out rather than just outright saying that he got released, like whatever was in it. And the thing is, I believe Truth more than anything else. That's why his name's R-Truth. And the pain in his eyes, like this. I've never seen this dude cry. To see this man who's about to be 54 cry like this, it was painful. And the fact that they let this contract lapse the way they did and spin the narrative, especially, Road Dogg coming out saying that he felt from a business standpoint it was best, for Truth to be let go. And I mean, this dude is a culture vulture. This dude is an opportunist. He is treacherous. a guy who said that, he's R-Truth's, best friend and all this other type of stuff. All you want to do was to latch on to a guy that was clearly far more talented than you. And Road Dogg's no stranger to that. Of course, case in point, look when he was the roadie for Jeff Jarrett, and then look when he became, the tag team with Billy Gunn and New Age Out. I mean, look at, like I said, when he was the roadie with Jeff Jarrett, and then look at, look at when he was with the New Age Outlaws. So I'm believing more and more that that Billy Gunn was was the better half of that tag team. Clearly, neither one of them were world champs, nothing like that. Neither one of them set the world on fire on their own. But clearly, when it comes to someone who stood out more, I would say it was Billy. And I mean, it's just like, and the con is that these writers have no clue what they're talking about. They have no clue what they're doing. And to allow a camera to film that, to film your shortcomings, to film, your foolishness, your inadequacies, and your lack of direction. I mean, that was very, very telling. That was a telltale sign. And for them to pretty much to outright admit that they don't know what they're doing when it comes to these women, that they don't really have a clear direction when it comes to the way they book, this women's division. It's terrifying. At least there was only like one black dude that was in the writers' room, but it needs to be way more. There needs to be, women representation as well. But it's just a group of guys who look the same, who think the same, and they clearly ain't thinking much. And it was evident for Bruce Pritchard to pitch the idea of Gunther losing to Pat McAfee was insulting. And the fact that this guy had the nerve to separate his top and bottom lip and let that garbage come out of his mouth clearly shows that, the writing is headed in a terrible direction. Creative right, there was no creativity. And that's insulting to Gunther as a character, as a performer, as a character. Like, how dare you? This guy, was the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, and has constantly had a great run as a World Heavyweight Champion. To lose to a color commentator is one thing. That he lost his championship at WrestleMania by tapping, which was embarrassing enough. It's already bad enough. But then by the time you get the backlash, you lose to a commentator. Even Pat knew that he was not in Gunther's league. And the way they, had Pat continue to sell that and continue to, like all the way up until the time he, got the gorilla position, whatever. Man, they made sure that he had dedication to that. I mean, and Gunther was legit choking him out for real. And so, rightfully so, Gunther, of course, Gunther won. The ring general, you know what I mean? And so, like I said, I'm glad that happened. And they, of course, they touched on Pat McAfee's love for wrestling, his connection, and everything like that. And he even had his jersey, of course, for as his entrance, his entrance gear for his match with Gunther. So you knew that Gunther had outclassed this dude. It's not even a contest. All for the sake of defending Pat's buddy Michael Cole. But whatever. Thankfully, Gunther moved on to even bigger and better things. Also, Chelsea Green, I never knew that she had a match with Penta. My respect level for Chelsea Green has shot up like a rocket. No pun intended. No pun intended. Right? Shot up like a Houston rocket. Shout out to Hakeem Olajuwon. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and for her to have, she had 5 broken noses to the point we could see the dent on her nose. And she said that, apparently the doctor told her that she got her nose broken again, then they'll have to go for plastic surgery. So Chelsea's a soldier. And this makes your respect level for her go up so much more. Like I said, these WWE Unreals have made me appreciate Chelsea Green even more. Like I said, that she went into the ring with Penta. Penta had a one-on-one match. Not no, intergender mixed tag. No, she went straight up with this dude. And I like the spotlight that they gave Penta as well. For him explaining, that right there. I was like, all right, that makes sense. So like I said, I like that they gave spotlight to them, spotlight to so, like I say, it was just like I said, so many others. And another part that got me, much like R-Truth, was the situation with Naomi's contract. Naomi's walkout. And the fact that Sasha Banks mentioned on this documentary, I was very, very surprised, because typically Vince, would treat you like you didn't exist, if you were still with another company. But yes, they did acknowledge her. They didn't acknowledge Vince. They went a roundabout way of mentioning him, talking like head of creative and stuff like that. So, so once they started talking about that, Naomi and Sasha, butting heads with, the head of creative at the time, and, and they were being disrespected and all this other type of stuff. I already knew the guys they were talking about, Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis, but because they're no longer with the company, they have to get the Voldemort treatment. Never say their name. Yet Sasha Banks is acknowledged. I think that's hilarious. How Naomi and Sasha, stood up for themselves. Stood up for themselves. They walked out. They bet on themselves, and they won. Here they are. Here they are. They made their turn, became champions. In the face of the haters. Meanwhile, Vince and Laurinaitis are no longer with the company. Vince no longer has a company to run. So, look who came out on the winning side on that one. But for Michael Hayes to say, that it was unprofessional for them to walk out, how they need to, stick it out and and continue to continue to be team players and all this other type of stuff, just the smear campaign. It's just like, how dare they stand up for themselves when they feel disrespected? How dare they not put up with disrespect? How dare they like you know what I mean? Like, that's what it came off as. It came off as, stay in your place, know your place. If you walk out, that's a coward thing to do. Basically, that's really what that whole thing came from. And the thing is, the most egregious thing about it is that this is coming from in the optics of it, unknown races criticizing Black women stood up for themselves when they were called everything outside of their God-given names. They made their stand, you know, um, and that was that. And so that the entitlement of it all, you know. But like I said, once again, this is coming from a guy who um, painted a Confederate flag on his face. It's not AI. It is confirmed. There, you know, I said, there are pictures. There are receipts out there. The internet is free. Google is your best friend. Google is free. The internet has receipts. So, you know, for someone like that to chastise them, it really gave off entitlement. It really gave off, you know, stay in your place. And how dare you? So it'll always be F. Michael Hayes, then, now, and forever. He's egregious, disgraceful. Plain and simple. More lighter note, also like the way that they have given a spotlight to Lyra Valkyria and how she was influenced by Becky Lynch, and like how they have the spotlight on Becky Lynch, and Seth Rollins, and of course the background, as it pertains to how the relationship started, where they are now, married, parents, you know what I mean, and how they're family first, you know what I mean, and so like I said, it's great to see their relationship thrive, and it's great to see them continuously supporting each other, by being on the same brand and everything like that, and how Becky, somebody caught this, but she mentioned that this contract is going to be like talking about this, being like her final run, and how she did her best to to really get Lyra over to like especially with that WrestleMania heel turn after WrestleMania, and how the reaction backfired. Our fans were cheering for Becky, but booed Lyra, because they had no connection with Lyra. You know what I mean? And so Becky's whole job was to elevate, and that she did. So like I said, so as far as that's concerned, and of course they go into as far as like Seth, as it pertains to as it pertains to his rise, pertains to him becoming world champion, some of the injuries that he's had to deal with, just to build up to to lead up to SummerSlam, all those things, and so yeah, and the thing about it is that series, these documentaries, behind the scenes can get pretty dicey. They can make or break somebody's perception. And yeah, you know what I mean. Like I said, it's just like you got to walk a fine line. But also on the other end, Triple H has always spoken highly of E.O. Scott, and apparently he said that even if his roster is depleted, he loses all these people. He said that that E.O. Scott, if you saw E.O. Scott, it was he also mentioned that if he still had E.O., he'd be fine with that. E.O. is phenomenal, tremendous, amazing talent, pound for pound, possibly the best women's wrestler in the world, especially from an in-ring standpoint. She has grown so much and definitely has become Asuka's successor. But yeah, like I said, as far as Unreal, it's one of those things where you really have to, like I said, the thing is you can make or break your perception. On one end, it gets you to cheer for and support and connect with, someone like a Chelsea Green, and to hear her side, you know, and as far as like talking about her career, and talking about her future, possibly, eventually wanting kids, as far as that's concerned, um, and like I said, of course, like I said, it's endeared you to someone like Bianca Belair from like season 1, among many others and things like that. But at the same time, it sheds light on the lack of creativity, out of touch they still with Paul Levesque or Leviske, as they say on the internet. How out of touch this guy is, um, yeah, it's definitely an exposure. I will say that for sure. And before I go, I would like to give some birthday shout outs. Of course, I'm missing his birthday. Let me see. Make sure. Right now, so yeah, like I said, as far as that, on January 20th, January 21st, excuse me, today, Hakeem Olajuwon, of course, NBA legend, greatest Houston Rocket of all time, Hall of Famer, Hakeem the Dream, 2-time champion, turns 63. On the same day, Jam Master Jay would have turned 61. On January 22nd, DJ Jazzy Jeff turns 61 as well. On January 24th, Kenyon Moore turns 55. Tatiana Ali from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air turns 47. Of course, on January 25th, Jennifer Lewis turns 69. And of course, Jay Briscoe would turn 42. So as far as that, as well as on January 26th, Kurt Franklin turns 56. Ty Tribbett turns 50. Sasha Banks, as you mentioned, Mercedes Moné, turns 34. Anita Baker turns 68. Eddie Van Halen would turn 71. And Vince Carter turns 49. And that is it for the birthdays. And before I go, I like to give a word of wisdom. Is that God called, of course, God requires us to be more effective listeners. If we are to reach others for Him, the best thing to do is to be a much better listener, because God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. To listen twice as much as we. So that's your word of wisdom. Remember, you are victorious, because greater is He that's in you than he that is in the world. When you put God in first place, you don't have to worry about being in last place. So please make sure to listen to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that you download podcasts. I'm also on YouTube, youtube.com/@Von Virginia. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more great content. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And may this day be the absolute very best day of your life.